Hello and welcome back to the Oh No 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 podcast. Now, they do say familiarity breeds contempt, and this is probably going to be the shortest pre-match podcast coverage that we've done in terms of an actual game tonight. Here to run through yet another quiet week at Starks Park, as we know and love. We are back in preparation for Saturday's return of Falkirk. I'm your host this evening, Robbie Weir, and I'm delighted to be joined firstly by Scott Fleming, who's carried on that winning streak. Feyenoord absolutely thumping Bayern Munich last night. Scott, what did you make of that one?
That was an awfully bra watch last night. It was certainly unexpected, I think. I'd said to my mates, I knew somebody was at the game last night, and I said to be honest, I think Feyenoord will score, but they'll probably get beat 2 or 3-1 or something, because Bayern have got so much attacking flair. And then they were 2-0 up after. I thought, well, I still think that there could be a chance at 2-2 here. And then when they held out till they scored the third, I went, well, that's just sensational. So if we can get a 3-0 win on Saturday, that would just top off a very good week.
I feel like that's the real Rafe Rovers fan in you speaking, that you're like 2-0 up or you might get a 2-0 draw. Like you've been scarred by that many games against Dumbarton. Also joined by a returning Iain Latto with his poster collection in the background. How are you getting on, Iain?
Yeah, I'm good. It's been quite a quiet spell for the club. Kind of could do with something happening to give us something to talk about, really, couldn't we?
Oh aye. Well, we'll see. We've also been joined by Leslie Maben. How are you getting on, Les?
Not bad. So we've got the red weather warning over on the west coast tomorrow, so I was out buying some gas canisters, which gave me a good chance to practice the Yorkshire war cry that I've learnt from Aidan Marsh. How much?
I love the fact that the word "the" has been totally taken out their dictionary and vocabulary. So yeah, just brilliant. Loving the interviews from him so far. Long may they continue. And then of course we've got Duncan Cameron. How are you getting on, Duncan?
Yeah, very well, mate. Delighted to be here.
So after Sunday night's podcast, minor miracle, we did not draw Livingston or Ayr in the Cup as we were all so sort of determinedly predicting. We actually decided to draw the holders, reigning champions, biggest team in Scotland in terms of financial clout, certainly. So we got Celtic away, which is going to be on Premier Sports. So nice and easy one to kick us off. Duncan, just how important and how helpful do you think that windfall is going to be, given the sort of position that we're at the moment? And do you think how do you think that's going to impact the club moving forward? Andrew Banman and Courier sort of suggesting it could net up to about £300,000.
Yeah, I think one of these draws that was probably very well received in the boardroom, probably fairly well received in the dressing room as well. I'm sure the players look forward to a game like that. And maybe kind of bottom of the list, probably the supporters' experience. Not a great place to go. Probably not going to be a great afternoon in terms of what happens on the park. But ultimately, as you say, maybe the draw we needed more than the draw we wanted. Very easy to see the positives in that. It is an enduring problem in Scottish football that you end up crossing your fingers for one or two teams in the Scottish Cup to try and make your finances work, and that there's however many teams all having to do the same thing. It shouldn't be that way, but it is. So a lot will depend on where we finish up in the league, but based on how things have gone so far, you would imagine we'll probably underperform expectations there, and this will go a long way to kind of making up for that. So yeah, whatever happens on the day, it's a lot better than going to Almondvale and getting beat, put it that way.
Yeah, do you think there's, Scott, do you think it sort of almost gets to a point when you get to these stages in the Cup where you're almost in a proverbial game of chicken, as Duncan says, against the truck that's on rushing, that is a team like a Livingston or a St Johnstone, that you might potentially face a very tricky task but you're not going to make much money out of? And just what were your thoughts on the draw itself?
Aye, of course, because I mean, to be fair, I was one of the ones that was kind of keen to just get Cove at home, more for the fact that you get the prize money anyway for if you win that to then get to the quarterfinals, and then that's when you probably expect to get a Celtic or a Rangers or Hearts or whoever in the quarterfinals. But to be honest, I think you try to avoid, especially in the one that the round we've just played as well. You try to avoid really an SPL team in that round, because again, you want to get the sort of fit to the fifth round, because that's when really there's any money outside of the top flight to be made in the cup. But in terms of the draw, yeah, I was just dying for a home fixture. I mean, we've been going about this stat about 2 home games in the cup, or in the Scottish Cup anyway, for what, I think since 2018, 2017 or something. It's mental, but it's Celtic. We know that it's going to be an extremely tough game. As Duncan said, I think the players, you could see, I think some of them put on their Instagram stories that they were over the moon that they're getting to play at Celtic Park. Some of them there might be a couple of it's maybe like the third or fourth time playing them, but one or two it'll be the first time as well. So no, good for the club as well to get the money for it with being on TV as well. But yeah, I think you would want a home tie, and it's a slightly easier sort of opponent if you're thinking about getting even further in the cup. But I think that's just been slightly greedy, I suppose.
Yeah, Iain, just Scott's raised a very good point there. For some of the young lads, I know that Aidan Marsh, he was posting about it on Instagram, just saying like, "Oh, I'll take that." But then, I mean, you think of your guys like your Lewis Gibsons and your Kai Montagues being able to go to places like that, but also maybe some of the older players a last chance to sort of visit potentially grounds like that. So how important do you think it is just in terms of that opportunity for them, and just really for the club in general? Just what were your thoughts?
I think it's important for the young guys to go and not be overawed by the crowd and by the occasion. And it's really up to guys in the squad, like your experienced pros, your Paul Hanlons, your Lewis Stevensons. I feel like that's like becoming a cliche of saying that, your Paul Hanlons, your Lewis Stevensons. But they need to kind of get a hold of the young guys and tell them, what it's going to be like in the crowd and the level of expectation and stuff. In terms of the crowd itself, now I'm talking about it, there's some chat about Jota coming back to Celtic. Obviously was a bit of a cult figure there, did extremely well. Kieran Tierney, fan favourite. If those two are to come back, you're probably looking at a good 10,000 on the crowd. So I think we've got to kind of cross our fingers and toes and hope that those two signings come in and the club does generate that little bit of extra income that will, or even a big bit of extra income that will bring in. Duncan touched on it. It's probably going to plug a hole in our finances this season. Like, there's no really getting much away from that. And that can only be beneficial in the short term, given that we are so light in our squad. And I imagine that that's probably played to our benefit, especially in this window, given that we're looking to bring in a good few bodies now.
Yeah, I think it's really the perfect timing for it. When I saw it, I was just, certainly as a fan, you want to go as far as possible, but at the same time, like, you're always conscious, as I say, of that, like, tie against a top flight team that's just going to be very difficult to get through. I mean, it's not impossible. We saw it with Motherwell at home. But yeah, to go to Celtic Park's obviously going to be a very tricky task, but the financial side's just huge. Certainly, I know over the last few years, Morton, it feels like they've been turning a profit year after year, but a lot of that's just simply down to the fact that they've had favourable cup draws, and this year's actually one that they've not been able to get through and play Rangers or Celtic, so I would automatically be expecting them to be running at a loss next season. Aye, my thoughts exactly. But yeah, it's really a good opportunity just in terms of January as well. So yeah, I feel hopeful that it will potentially change the picture. And it was interesting to see and read that Andrew Barrowman sort of saying that a lot of the money is potentially going to be earmarked for infrastructure. Now, I'd be the opposite. I'd be like, get Connor Young, Tony Adelaide, and what was it, Curtis Main that was doing the rounds on Pine Bovril? I know Blair will be going mental, like, why are you listening to rumours? But here we are. And yeah, Leslie, looking forward to shouting some abuse at the likes of Hatate and Maeda in their local tongue.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so it wasn't actually that long ago that we had Celtic in the cup at Celtic Park, if you remember. It was the 21-22 season now. We were there twice that season, if I remember rightly. The first one was the League Cup, and that was when there were still COVID restrictions and like nobody was allowed into Celtic Park who wasn't a Celtic fan. And then when we were there in the Scottish Cup, I was going to say, I mean, I think some people might have kind of got in somehow, like, abseiling through the roof or hiding in the toilets or whatever, but officially we weren't supposed to be there. And then the second one was after the Good Willie signing, and it was just a bit of a weird atmosphere for a lot of us, given how things were panning out. So it'll be nice to actually kind of be there under normal circumstances, if you like, in terms of gate numbers and also just the kind of enthusiasm among our support to be there. The one thing I will say about the game itself, Falkirk actually did really well against Celtic in the League Cup earlier this season, and ultimately they did just run out of steam, but they got their tactics bang on. They were leading twice. They were in front twice. So, we shouldn't be going there and just thinking we're just going to go and take a caning or treat it as a training exercise. It can be done. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, like you say, it was great to see Aidan Marsh on Instagram saying, "Oh, go on then," or whatever. For a guy like him to come up here and then within a month he's going to be playing at Celtic Park. Aye, so I'll be getting the megaphone and the regional abuse dialects out ahead of that one. Might even do a wee preview for the reporters and journalists in Japan following Daisen and Hatate's progress. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Iain mentioned the fact that Jota could be signing probably before the weekend or whatever. You've also got Tierney potentially coming in as well. Can you imagine? I think that is going to be their first home game, I think, as we're saying, after the transfer window. Can you imagine they both sign, then they both aren't even in the squad, but there's a full house there, thinking that they're going to get a homecoming, and they've got a homecoming for Anthony Ralston at right back.
I think there was some sort of suggestion that they sell the tickets anyway. So even though
for season
Celtic Park's empty, it's one of these kind of ticket exchange type deals where, if you want tickets for the semi-final, you have to have bought them. So actually, it maybe doesn't make a big difference. Yeah, maybe it doesn't make a big difference financially, but it makes a difference just to have more people in the ground. Because I think one of the games we've been at Celtic Park relatively recently, the Green Brigade were boycotting it. So it was a weird atmosphere as well. And again, you want to go and have it be as big a...
Because we had the one where it was at Ibrox, where the Union Bears, they decided not to attend that one.
Have I got that completely backwards?
Yeah. Upsetting some Celtic fans, which, to be honest, they're all upset anyway.
I went to a couple of games and Arseholes one of there. A real turn up for the books. But the only other point I was going to make on that was in terms of January, it definitely does make a difference. Because I was thinking about it, before the draw before we actually played Falkirk, and the difference that it can make. And we talk all the time about how the transfer market where we are is so small that basically if a championship club wants a player, there's a good bet 3 or 4 other championship clubs will want them at the same time. And I think the fact that we are going to Celtic Park and that Queen's Park are going to Ibrox, it's big kind of factors in having that money available. If, an agent's phone rings and he's got offers on the table from us, Morton, Dunfermline, Hamilton, which could easily be the case. It just gives us that little bit extra, that little lever to pull if we need to kind of push ourselves over the top. So I think it can be really, really important because you can definitely see how that could be the other way around. As you say, Robbie, Morton have been to Ibrox a good few times recently, and it's nice to have that kind of in our pockets if we need it. But it is, 300 grand's a lot of money. That is a lot more than, within reason, apart from the examples you gave, that's more than you could spend in a window. Yeah. So it's good to hear that it's going into, infrastructure, sustainability. That's what you want to hear, really.
If you're a bored
bastard like me.
Don't know about that.
More on him. We were having a chat in our group chat with our resident accountant, who we were discussing this with, and sort of saying that because it'll fall, this is really, really tedious, dull chat, but for those companies, house enthusiasts that do exist out there, that do tune in, your Kieran Maguires of the world, saying that the Kieran Bowie sell-on clause, that should go into the same sort of financial figures as this one. So if you factor in, we're potentially getting a 6-figure sum from that on top of the money for the Celtic, game, then yeah, it should make a big difference in terms of where we're at, even though, again, last season we got a lot more potential prize money from a league finish compared to potentially this season, because you'd be hard-pressed to see us finish in second this season, if we're being brutally honest. So yeah, we will look forward to that in due course, and obviously have Leslie's pre-match Japanese podcast as well available for all fans in the Far East, no doubt. But yeah, the major talking point about Raith Rovers came today, where we got confirmation that Sam Stanton is going to be moving on a loan to Arbroath. Now, at this time, we are going to be refraining from commenting on this. Got you, didn't I? You definitely thought. Just a wee shout out for the people that are obviously going to be absolutely raging, no doubt, for thinking that we wouldn't talk about this. But of course, we're here. And yeah, it's time to get it going. I'm going to start with you, Iain. You had very vocal reaction on Twitter. Tell us your thoughts.
It's the right decision. Ultimately, it's the correct decision. There is no benefit whatsoever in keeping a player who doesn't want to be here, ultimately. There was one prerequisite, excuse me, that I had, and it was that Stanton did not go to a championship club. And I understand that we probably offered them to a couple of Premiership clubs and they weren't interested. So the only alternative is that he needs to go to League One. So, you know, this could all have been avoided if he could just be bothered. And yeah, I'm glad that I'm not going to see him moping about the pitch and moping about at half-time when he's been on the bench and no getting involved with the other players and no getting involved with the fans and not celebrating goals with the team and just generally bringing the vibe down. So it's the right call. Sam's a great player on his day. You will not find a Raith Rovers supporter who will say anything to the contrary of that. He's probably the Championship's best midfielder on his day. But he's not been arsed.
League One's best midfielder on his day.
League One's best midfielder, you're right, Duncan. He's not been arsed. And that didn't look like it was going to change. He's made his feelings clear. He doesn't want to be here. Enjoy League One.
Yeah, I think that's a fair sentiment that's shared among quite a lot of the support, shall we say. Duncan, just when you initially saw it come through, were you at all surprised that he'd gone to Arbroath given the sort of drop in the level, or were you just sort of thinking, much as Iain was, just in terms of that, look, it had to be done, it wasn't working out, and that steps needed to be taken?
I was surprised. I definitely was surprised. I think mostly the League One aspect of it. I hadn't really considered that as an option, almost. But my immediate sort of reaction was kind of relief, almost. Well, it's like, oh, that's a problem solved. Something Iain just said there about bringing the vibe down. That's almost my biggest issue with it. Like, it just kind of really detracts when there's like one guy just kind of hunched over in the corner or whatever. Like, you want to feel like everybody's all on the same page and the whole team's all pulling together, and you've just got this kind of other factor in the kind of the back of your mind with it. And it's just like that, you know, the kind of body language and stuff. And it maybe extrapolating beyond that. But I think, you know, the short statement we got from the club was pretty clear. You know, and I think that we're not speculating about that anymore. There's a statement there to say that he said he wants to go. Fine. All right. So whatever has led to that point, I don't really care, to be honest. He said he wants to go, then that's fine. It's then in everybody's best interest to find somewhere for him to go. If they can't make a Premiership deal work, Championship's not going to work for the football club. So in that case, then Arbroath looks like the next best option. And I mean, I genuinely, sincerely, really, really hope Sam Stanton gets back to enjoying his football. Because it's no fun for anybody. Nobody benefits when somebody's unhappy at their work. And that's ultimately what it is. And I've got a lot of sympathy on that front, because I imagine most of us, at a certain point, for a dozen different reasons, have been at work one day and been like, I can't work here anymore. I need to chuck this. I need to go and do something else. And when you're a footballer, it's a very unique situation, because you don't just have a 4-week notice or there's only a limited number of other places that you can go, and you can only move at certain times. So I do have an element of sympathy in that sense, with no knowledge of what the background was to get to that point. But as I say, fundamentally, I don't really care too much. I'm just pleased that it's done. Now, it felt to me as a supporter like a distraction. So I can only assume to some people, at least within the football club, it was a distraction as well. And it's now dealt with. And now, well, listen, we'll come back to it in the summer in one way or another. It's only a loan deal. But yeah, ultimately it looks like it's a problem solved for Sam Stanton. He didn't want to be at the football club anymore, and he's not. It's a problem solved for Raith Rovers, because a player who was unhappy, who's now no longer within the situation. And I tell you what, for Arbroath, they have absolutely won a watch, because he's without doubt the best player in that division. Like, overnight, he just is.
Because I think there was also another lad at Arbroath that they've brought in that's been from, like, the League One fans have pretty much, I can't remember who it is, but like he's been called out as being like an exceptionally good midfielder. So you're already adding in like one of the best Championship midfielders from last season into that mix. So yeah. Scott, for you, how do you weigh up the highs of last season that we saw with Sam Stanton, and do you think this season, how much that detracts from it? How do you sort of weigh those two up in terms of his sort of legacy with the club?
Yeah, it's a real difficult one, because it's just such a drop off. Like, it's not even like a gradual sort of month by month. It's just no working for him. Like, it literally was basically he's came for being everybody's player of the year at the club, arguably one of the players in the season. We pushed Dundee United all the way, a large part down to either a late sort of goal for Stanton or a late sort of run through midfield to give the ball through to Vaughan or whoever to score. And he got us so many points last season. And then it gets to like September, and then you're going, it was unrecognisable, Sam Stanton. It was just such a drop off. I'll still like never forget the season that we had last season in terms of what he done for us. As I say, I think he got like 6 goals from midfield and about the same in assists. So if you're getting double figure goal involvements to sort of central midfield, you're clearly a pretty decent player. So for that, I'll always be grateful. But yeah, I think you could see very early in the season that there was something going on in the background in terms of just the fact that he looked unhappy. He just always was sort of head down, no chatting to anybody. Now, we knew Sam Stanton for last season, even when the times were so good, was not a chatty person. But you could tell even just the fact that you look at all the... I went back, I think somebody put it on Twitter or Instagram or something yesterday, the goals he scored last season. Because folk were saying, he was just angry on Sunday. The fact that he... And he could have been, because of the pass that he put back, but every goal he scored, it wasn't like he was just sort of head down back to the halfway line. He was celebrating every goal that he scored as if it was like a winner in the 90th minute. So you could tell that the boy was unhappy. I do kind of hope that he does get back to enjoying his football as well, because at the end of the day, he is a human being and stuff like that. So you don't want to see somebody completely fall off the face of the earth and stuff like that as well. But yeah, I have to say fair play to the club, because it was something that was just getting week by week by week worse in the fan base. So I think the club were probably in the background trying to help him out in terms of get suitors, and I'm sure there would have been plenty of suitors because they know what he can do for your club when he's playing well. But yeah, I think the club have done the right thing in avoiding a Championship club, because we know fine well what that can do to you. But yeah, I think it was the best thing for him and the best thing for us, and hopefully, also touching on it, I wonder if we do go and bring somebody else in. I think we will, but somebody like Kai Montague probably now steps up to the mark, thinking might be extra game time for me, especially this weekend, and also the fact that this is an opportunity for somebody to grasp a jersey.
Yeah, 100%. I think that it's you've touched on a really important point, that it has been sort of festering for a good while. I remember even as far back as sort of the League Cup games, it must have been, and people were there was comments online sort of saying he wasn't acknowledging or clapping fans when he was coming off the pitch. Now, for me, that's like by the by. I'm not going to get overly upset by it, but it was almost like the more people noticed it, the more it got worse, and the more it became a protracted saga. To the point that we got to last Sunday, and it was just so bizarre in terms of the way that things were panning out. And yeah, as I know that me and Blair spoke quite extensively about it on Sunday, just on the topic of it, but sort of saying that it was the worst thing to happen at the worst person, but it has been clear for a good while. I know that people have sort of speculated one way or another. People have been like, oh, just leave the guy alone, and whatever's going on just with that. But then at the same time, you've obviously got a lot going on about, does he potentially want to move? What's happening with this? And people obviously spreading rumours, and you can never tell the fact from the fiction in terms of the rumours that go about. So yeah, I think the club have handled it really well in terms of the tweet that they actually put out, as you say, because it's very clear to the point that this has not been an issue where I think people looking from the outside probably saw that tweet and they says, Sam Stanton at Arbroath, what the fuck is going on there?
Including Arbroath fans.
Yeah. And whereas Rovers fans are very much like, okay, that makes sense. Whereas everyone else is a bit like, well, what's happened? The club just basically spell out straight from the off that, look, this has been something that's been on the cards. He's been wanting away for a few months. How many months, how far that goes back, whether it was all the way back. Because it could be all the way back to Iain Murray. And again, that might be something that the club have factored in terms of with Iain Murray going, has it been that he's struggled to handle a dressing room? Because you had the thing with Ross Milne, and that's been touched on before, Ross Milne leaving, and that maybe failed to control that, and then you had Sam Stanton as well. So, look, it's a solution that it works really for everyone in terms of that he gets back playing football, and hopefully he can get a bit of enjoyment out of that and be able to get a move sooner and later. And whether that turns into a permanent move come the summer, who knows? Rovers get an unhappy player out of the dressing room and can focus on the players that do want to be here. And you call out Kai Montague there. I think it's worth giving a bit of credit to Aidan Connolly and Josh Mullen, who've been out the squad, came back very, very professionally and went about their business. Connolly in particular, he's just been absolutely superb. We saw him in the Macmillan Lounge after the Livingston game, and just saying to him, fair play, by the way, because that was just, as mentioned before, a lot of people, including myself, had written him off. So he deserves a lot of credit for the way that he's came back. Leslie,
Robbie, sorry, on you go, please. No,
you first.
Sorry, I just wanted to talk a bit about the statement itself. A bit of derision from supporters of other clubs. Kind of a bit of chat. I was having a back and forth with a Thistle fan on Twitter. Just a bit about they thought that there was a bit of throwing him under the bus, was the phrase used.
No,
and I seen that in a few different places. Not for me at all. I think the club has got Sam Stanton's interests, but they also have to protect their own interests.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, if the club come out and say, Sam Stanton's gone to Arbroath, we'll be making no further comment, that leaves it completely open to interpretation, and everybody goes, why has that happened? What's going on here? And then there's the whole furore around that. I think the club had to make a statement on, yes, he's left, and here's why he's left. Not because we don't want him, and not because we don't think he's a great player, but because he doesn't want to be here. And I've got no problem with the club making that distinction, but I just saw the statement kind of coming up a few times in a few different places.
I think there's also with that is it makes sense in the context of watching all of our games this season. Because there's nobody who's watched the Rovers this season and not at least once thought to themselves, that's weird. Why is he by himself? Or why is he wandered off? Or it's been unavoidable. So when you read that statement with that in mind, you're like, right, that makes sense. That adds up. Cool. If you only see a statement in isolation that just says, this player, who's one of the best players in the league, wants to leave, you're like, why is this club doing this? Why have they forced this guy? it makes sense within the wider context. It's a little bit like sacking Ian Murray, where everybody outside was like, hang on a second, you finished second. And, well, not by any means did all the Rovers fans agree with it, but we were like, well, it makes more sense than you think it does. And I tell you the one that's very, very similar. Somebody mentioned it the other day, and I was like, that's the example I've been looking for 6 months. When St Johnstone sacked Callum Davidson after he'd won them a double.
Yeah.
And the headline is St Johnstone sacked double winning manager. And you read that headline and you go, that's ludicrous. Why the hell have they done that? And every single St Johnstone fan can tell you exactly why, because they've been seeing it. This is the same. Right. You see the headline of Wraith Rovers said send Sam Stanton to Arbroath. And if you've not been paying attention, you're like, that's mental. Why have they done that? But when you've been seeing it develop, it's actually the answer. You go, right, well, he's asked to leave. Well, you don't have the full background. You're like, right, okay, that makes sense. That explains a lot of what we've seen. And as we've already said, this then is like a good resolution, effectively. This is the best you're going to get in terms of a resolution. So I can see it from the outside, but I agree with you. I think that's... And I mean, well, listen, I'm sure if you phoned Sam Stanton, would it be the statement he would have put out? I don't imagine he would have done. There's two sides to everything, but it didn't feel to me, when I read it, I didn't feel to me like it was a hatchet job on the reputation of Sam Stanton or whatever. Presumably that is a statement of fact. I don't think they could have gotten away with putting out if it didn't. He's asked to leave within a wider context that we have no right to know, and now he has left. So, fine.
I was thinking, actually, I mean, you make an important point there, Duncan. This is the third thing in about the last 2 or 3 months that's happened to the Rovers where from the outside you're like, this club's a basket case. But it's something that the board have had absolutely no control over, and it's not in any way been their fault. So we had the David Healy thing, first of all. We've effectively appointed this guy, and then he chickens out. Not the board's fault. Neil Collins, something happens involving gambling in the west coast of America, and he gets bought out. Not really the board's fault. And now this happens, and again you're thinking, like Michael Stewart will be, I'm sure he'll be on Premier Sports, this is absolutely nuts. First they've sacked Ian Murray, and now they're getting rid of Sam Stanton. What is going on? Andy Barrowman's a charlatan. But it's not like that at all. It's 3 things that the board has had absolutely no control over, and they've responded in the right way. And I mean, the one thing I maybe did think a little bit, and I'm probably just overthinking this, we were maybe kind of emboldened in what we could say, because just 24 hours ago, Falkirk had put out a very similar statement about Callum Morrison, because something got leaked to the press. And so they just came out and put a statement out and said, Callum Morrison has said he has handed in a transfer request. And it's all right, okay, this isn't just bonkers Wraith Rovers, this is actually something that's happening at other clubs in the division as well. So I do have a lot of sympathy for the board, and I think, to go back to Iain's point too, I saw that tweet as well. This is not us throwing Stanton under the bus. In fact, I've written this in my notes for tonight. It's the polar opposite of that. We've worked with him. We've found him a club. We could very easily just have Ross Milland him. We could just have said, right, you're under contract to us. We'll give you training facilities in the gym, but you're no training with the team. We've not done that. We've said, right, we've found somewhere for you to go. I'm sure we're still covering a chunk of his wages, and we've given him an opportunity now to clear his head, get out and get back to enjoying his football. And good luck to him with it.
Just something to jump in on that. So, for one thing, I think you've been slightly kind to the board in saying that all 3 of these are things they couldn't do anything about. Because I think, imagine if you went to Sam Stanton and said, whenever this whole thing began, whatever it was, I'm sure he would tell you, if only they'd done this, it never would have got to this point. Yeah, because that's always the case. But the other thing with that, I think the point about Cal Morrison really illustrates again about how these things work and how they can play out. And I think this does speak well to the way that the board handle their business. And the fact that, again, how remarkable it is that Starks Park is just airtight for news now. It's ludicrous. And I don't know how they're doing it. Because what we got was Sam Stanton's gone to Arbroath.
I'm just going to cut the connection now.
Like, out of nowhere, Sam Stanton's gone to Arbroath. Official, comunicado official, that's it, done. Whereas the Falkirk thing last night, the Record were running it, and Falkirk didn't put out a statement. Falkirk provided a quote to the Record, Because basically, and I'm gleaning this from their chief exec replying to folk under the tweet, which again, I don't know, it's a way to go about your business. But reading between the lines, reading the lines, basically, the Scott Burns from the Daily Record phoned, is it James Sweeney?
Jamie Sweeney.
Jamie Sweeney, that's the one. John Sweeney. Basically,
Phoning the First Minister.
Yeah, I was like, that's the only name I know I'm not trying to say. But basically, phoned them and said, we're running this story. Now, presumably, because Callum Morrison's agent had phoned him. But basically, look, we're running this story. Care to comment? And then Falkirk have basically felt obliged to then provide comment to the paper so that the story's not just running wild. They're trying to get out in front of it by saying, well, this about... Like, they've lost control of that story and they're trying to then firefight it, which is a situation that, however, the Rovers have not gotten themselves into. The Rovers have effectively broken and closed a story this morning by going, the very first time we're acknowledging a problem exists, the problem no longer exists. Sam Stanton told us months ago, this is the first you're hearing of it, Sam Stanton told us months ago he wanted away, he's away.
Yeah.
Falkirk are now, in the paper, saying to their own fans, well, this guy wants away, we will accept offers, but only if they meet our valuation. But now everybody knows he wants away, so what's the value? So, yeah. I mean, that's... There are ways to handle these things. Problems will happen. Football players will always want to leave for myriad reasons. And I think, it does look like they seem to have handled it better than most would have. But time will tell, I suppose, because we've sent Sam Stanton out on loan to Arbroath. If Falkirk sell Callum Morrison for a huge amount of money to somebody, maybe it's 4D chess that Jamie Sweeney's playing in the paper and, we're just too daft to see it. But it seems to me like you don't want to be reading about guys leaving in the paper, basically. And that seems to be one thing, at least, that this Rovers board are pretty good at.
Yeah. I think the only caveat with that would be that I think the Morrison one came as a complete shock to even their fans and to the outside, whereas with this, I think Rovers fans were a bit like, we saw this one a wee bit down the line. True. I think there's enough speculation.
Tail, yeah.
On the Morrison one, Callum and the Morrison, what's the story? Has he not just signed a brand new deal really recently? Has someone been in his ear? I don't understand. It's so weird because they're top of the league, likely going to win the league, and he's their best player. Just wait, and then I imagine that knowing McGlynn, he'll have some sort of increase in his contract, pretty big, if they get into the Premier League. Just hang on and get to play in the Premier League for a year, and if they don't, in the summer you're in the same position. It just feels, where is he going to go? That's going to be vastly better than where he already is. It just feels
very strange.
You have to think that the only thing that could potentially tempt him, and I'm not we're completely guessing here, is that an Irish club's came in and they can guarantee European football, and it might be something that he goes, well, even if I went to even if I got promoted with Falkirk, let's be serious, Falkirk are probably not going to be in the top four of the SPL season.
Well, depends who you ask, because the valuation that their fans have stuck on that some wild tweets. What was the one saying that
2.5 mil?
That Regan Hendry wouldn't get a game in over Aidan Nesbitt, and that he could be a good backup or something like that.
I definitely think that there's got to be an Irish team interested in him that's maybe tempted European football.
Linfield.
Well, that's Linfield, when he signed his last contract, because Linfield were in for him, and the story at the time was that he turned it down because he didn't want to move. I think his wife runs a business in Scotland. So it was specifically did not want to go to, Northern Ireland. I think the Linfield people would want us to clarify that. But because that's the thing, it's a real scramble to try and make sense. Because that's the there's a suggestion of either he thinks he's Falkirk's best player and can do better, or that he's not getting enough game time, and so he wants to leave. But then also, he missed a good chunk of this season with like some sort of mystery illness.
Yeah.
And there's again, like, and I'm I feel much happier just wildly speculating about Falkirk stuff than I do Rover stuff. Some suggest he feels like he wasn't kind of adequately sort of supported through that. But then again, I mean, he seemed pretty happy when he scored that goal against us on Sunday.
Yeah.
So, very strange. It feels like agent stuff to me more than like...
It's not at Stanton levels of disgruntlement to the fact that he actually celebrated, so there is that.
But I don't know if it's just been like, you know, his agent's playing hardball, and Jamie Swinney's decided, like, I'm not having this, effectively. Because, you know, if Callum Morrison's agent comes in and goes, look, I'm going to put out that he's leaving unless you bump his contract up or unless you do X, Y, or Z. And Jamie Swinney knows fine well that if he caves, he's got Ethan Ross at his door, he's got Calvin Miller at his door. You know, they've got a whole squad of guys who, I mean, all right, they're Falkirk contracts, but signed League One contracts, who are now top of the Championship. And it's a case of, like, if you cave to the first one, you've got to then do the same for the rest. And he's basically just gone, nah, I'm not being held to ransom for this. And has effectively called the bluff. And when the Record have phoned and gone, this agent's telling us to put a story in the paper that your best player wants to leave, he's basically gone, print it. Like, go for it. I will take this one so that to basically, you know, so it doesn't spread to the rest of the squad. It could be that. Actually, it feels to me more like agent-driven stuff than like player-driven stuff, if that makes sense. But, I mean, what the hell? Nothing.
I'm going to direct us back towards the Sam Stanton situation. Because I appreciate that there are Rovers fans out here that do listen to this podcast and that don't want to hear about Callum Morrison. They're like, why the fuck are they talking about Callum Morrison? I want to hear about Sam Stanton. About
Callum Morrison.
It is. But just to go back to yourself, Leslie, what do you think, sort of just in terms of obviously we're losing Sam Stanton as a player, but do you think it will have a potential big impact in terms of the squad? Obviously, they've been very vocal about in their praises about the sort of attributes that he brings, but also as well the opportunity for, I know it was touched on before, but someone like Kai Montague to potentially step up. So do you think there's potential opportunity there, and as well with it being January, potential to bring other players in?
Definitely. I mean, to be honest, I've never been that bothered by any of the kind of amateur psychology. That's not directed at anybody on the podcast, just to be clear. About, you know,
feels like
Stanton celebrating the way he warms up. Things like that.
I feel like
it was a very clumsy segue into. I really like motor racing. Kimi Raikkonen used to drive for years for Ferrari, and Kimi Raikkonen just looked like he did not give a shit. Like when he wasn't in the car, you know, other guys would be doing stretches and looking at tactics, and he'd be eating ice creams and things like that. But when he got out there and he drove, and he was very, very good. And I always kind of thought that was Sam Stanton as well. Look, if he's looks a bit lethargic in the warm up or something like that, it doesn't matter as long as he's playing to his full strength when he crosses the touchline. We simply do not and cannot know, you know, what's going on in the dressing room, which is absolutely right. We've got no right to know these things. But like you say, there is a chance now for somebody like Kai Montague to come in. I do wonder, actually, though, if this is a tacit sign that there's somebody lined up. Because, you know, that's 4 guys that have gone out now in this window. So Jameson was recalled. We didn't renew Cody's contract. We didn't renew Davo's contract. Stanton's now gone out. 4 guys have come out. Eden Marsh has come in and granted Jordan Docherty's become available as well. That's making an already light midfield even lighter. And I just wonder, or actually I hope, that this has only now been signed off because somebody is imminent. Because you could potentially have kicked the Stanton deal down the road to next week. I don't know how the League One loans work. Somebody's going to come in the comments and shoot me down for that probably. But you know, you could have kind of kicked this to next week potentially. So I'm just hoping that this is a tacit sign that if somebody's not in before the Falkirk game, that new bodies are coming in very soon. Because we do need definitely, the midfield's very light. I think you were saying in our group chat this morning, Scott, we're 1 injury away in midfield from a crisis with Byrne being out. So Yeah, I mean, I think it's, as I say, I've always been of the view that when it starts to maybe affect what happens on the pitch or whatever, then that's the issue. We've got players like Kai Montague who we can now see coming in the meantime, and hopefully a few more bodies arriving very soon.
Scott, just to come to yourself next. Barry Robson, do you think this is maybe a sign that he knows what he's after? He's quick acting in terms of what he's looking for. He said that he wanted to see what the players were all about, and maybe do you think he saw Sunday and he was just like, nah, that's not for me, and just decided, look, we're going to get you moved on, offers them the opportunity to get that exit?
I mean, we kind of touched on this on Monday night when we were talking about the Falkirk game. Like, it was, I don't think Barry Robson would have been putting him on the pitch if he didn't think that A was going to do a job for him and B was not going to try. I mean, that performance for he came on about 70 minutes, I think, Stanton. That performance until Sam Stanton came on was just all guns blazing, basically. Everybody was working for everybody. Everybody was closing everybody down. To then have sort of put that game in doubt by saying, oh, well, this guy's actually not been doing much at training, but I'm just going to put him on because of what he did last season. Even though Barry Robson's probably been told this guy doesn't want to be here, but clearly thinks he's doing enough in training to be still in and around it. But yeah, we don't know because we don't see training. So it's hard to tell, but I think that Barry Robson has shown already in the first 3 weeks and told us kind of what he's after, and we've seen on Sunday, if that's the sort of team he's after, I think everybody's going to buy in. The players, the fans, the board, everybody will buy into that because you could tell that everybody was just working and everybody was working together. So going forward, I think that was the first thing that we kind of said when we did the whole Welcome Barry Robson podcast was like, what are we wanting from Barry Robson? And the first thing that I wanted us to do was be harder to beat. And he's certainly done that. I know his first game, I kind of wiped that out of the window because, yes, it was in 25 minutes, but it was also, he'd had a few days to work with the team. And as he said,
players at the end of the game.
But he also says, like, look, I don't actually know much of this squad. So what is he going to learn in 72 hours of training? Potentially, not much. So
we thought they were all young players at that point as well, so hopefully he's learned a bit about that.
That's another thing, but yeah, so the fact he had 2 weeks of training as well with him, I think has massively helped, and it's helped him see what maybe players did not have or what we need. So I agree with Leslie. I'm still hopeful that we might potentially see a signing walk in tomorrow night, but I also think that we could see one or two next week with the fact that Stanton's gone out. And listen, there could be more players that Barry Robson's maybe said to the board, look, I don't see them maybe getting a lot of game time for me. There could be maybe Josh Muller. I'm just using him as an example. I don't know. But they might say, but we need bodies in. So we might need to also think about one more out. But we'll need to find out what the situation is.
Scott, I'm going to break it to you that in the Blair Hopcroft style of things, Josh Mullen's movement in the middle of the park's been actually a factor that's seen him decide to move Sam Stanton on, and Duncan's just sitting there like, oh, God's sake.
Yeah, it's like Josh Mullen's like the vice president. He's a heartbeat away from starting in central midfield.
Right, what we'll do is we are going to take a short break. We will leave the Stanton matter, but yeah, obviously it's a shame to see the end of the sort of the way that things have finalised. Obviously, last year absolutely worshipped by the fans, and as I say, it's just unfortunate. I said this last on Monday's podcast, just an unfortunate way that it's ended. But again, it comes back to that old cliche that no player is bigger than the club, so we'll leave it at there. And yes, we will take a short break and be back after that. Okay, welcome back to the Oh No 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 podcast, where it's now time to turn our attention to our familiar foes from over in Grangemouth. I think we spent half this podcast talking about Callum Morrison, so we need to get back into it. Iain, do you think there's going to be a difference in terms of the dynamics for this game going in? Maybe Falkirk difficult to say they're up the top of the league, but maybe potentially with their form and a bit of pressure.
Yeah, the pressure's definitely building on them. I don't think there's any way around about it. The patented second half of the season McGlynn collapse is hopefully imminent. I don't think McGlynn is going to come to Starks Park on Saturday and play in much a different way than what they played at the weekend there. Not because I don't think he's a good manager, and not because I don't think he's tactically astute, but just because I think he will think that they're a better football team than us, and they can just come and outplay us. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Falkirk come in and just try and play their game, and us do exactly what we did on Sunday. I think stopping the ball into Spencer is the absolute key to our performance on Sunday in the first half, and will be key to our performance on Saturday. He's the metronome in the middle of the park. He makes them tick. He sets the tempo, and we completely stopped the ball into him. He never had time on it, and to kind of spray the ball about and pick the passes and get the ball to the wide men. And they were completely functionless almost in the first half. And I think if we can get at that again, I think we'll have some joy. I think the players that they've got that kind of play in that position, namely Dylan Tate, I don't think they're good enough to play in that position. And if they're going to go with the two at the base of the midfield, if we can force that to Tate, I think we can totally get on top of him and make him lose the ball high up the park again. And I think we can get a bit of joy that way. So I'm keen to see it. I'm looking forward to getting back to the football. It feels like it's been forever since I've been there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the game and seeing how it goes.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute since we've had a home game, certainly. So yeah, looking forward to getting back to Starks. Duncan, just for yourself, how important do you think it will be to sort of keep the same intensity as we did in the sort of first half of Sunday's match? Just do you think Robson's team have really sort of set a standard there? And just what are your thoughts going into this one?
I do. I would be very, very surprised if we didn't do the same thing. I think kind of in the same way that Iain's saying there about John McGlynn, regardless of what else he does, there's certain things that are guaranteed. They're going to come and try and pass around us. That's just how his team plays. And he will definitely make some changes from the way they were set up in the first half on Sunday. He would be mad not to. But the fundamentals will be the same because that's how his team plays. Although we've only really had, as Scott says, one kind of proper game from Barry Robson, I get the feeling that's the way we're going to play. I think that's the way it looks to me, like that's the way we're always going to play. So that intensity almost certainly will be there. And I think it will be interesting to see how much each manager adjusts from Sunday. Because it's obviously incumbent on McGlynn to not do what he did in the first half. But they were better than us in the second half. Now, does Barry Robson look at that and say, well, actually, we were just a little bit tired, so we can actually do the same thing again, and we'll be better in the first half again? Or does he have to then make his own changes to go beyond that? And I think, as Iain said, I can't see McGlynn being so reliant on Spencer coming to get the ball out of defence again, because it's too much a single point of failure. That was just Easton standing on his toes. Basically, that single thing sort of quote unquote won us the first half in terms of the performances on Sunday. But again, I agree with Iain that I don't think he's got another midfielder who can sort of come back and do it to the same degree. So it'll be interesting to see the changes that he makes with that. And then, so does Robson then just go out and do the same thing again? Or do we have something else? Does Barry Robson have something else up his sleeve to try and do something a little bit differently? I think the other thing we might see from Falkirk is I suspect they'll change one of their centre halves as well. So they brought Darrell Connor in from York City at the start of the window. He's not played for them yet. I can't imagine John McGlynn watched 120 minutes out of both Liam Henderson and Cole Donaldson on Sunday and thought that they were fine. So I don't know which one of them I would take out.
Cole Donaldson.
Probably Cole Donaldson.
Yeah.
But Darrell Connor, I'm not a world beater. He was decent at Morton, but probably no more than that. I think he did well to get a move to York, but then basically didn't play for them. So you're not talking about, I think even somebody as good as Luke Graham, who was so good for them before he was recalled by Dundee, coming back into that team. So yeah, very interesting. Again, I think a game that the real kind of tactics nerds, I think, would be buzzing off the first 15 minutes out of this one, I suspect.
Yeah. And Scott, just for you, what are your thoughts sort of going into the game? And I think the real sort of theme among these matches so far have been that with Dylan Easton in particular sort of stepping up to the mark in the first game, and then again on Sunday, just being able to bring him into the game as much as possible in that sort of number 10 role. What are your sort of thoughts just heading in? And yeah, just do you think Falkirk are liable to change it up quite a lot, or do you think it will just be more of the same?
Yeah, I mean, I would kind of go along the same lines as what most of us are saying. I just don't see McGlynn going. What they've played the game more than us, I think. So they've played 20 league games. I don't think they're going to get to this point and it's gone so well, and just because they've lost one game, they're going to just abandon it. I just don't see that happening. So the fact he's drilled it into them for so long now in League One as well, I just don't see them changing it just because we beat them in extra time on Sunday. So I actually think if Barry Robson, they might watch that back and see a way to try and play around how we approached it. So maybe Barry Robson does have to maybe tinker something in our system to make it maybe a slightly different trigger or something. I don't know. That this is the sort of stuff that they'll be talking about of, right, maybe we need to get somebody else that's pressing at a different time that they don't sort of see it coming. And again, there could be one or two personnel changes. You could easily put in Connolly in for Pollock or whatever. Yes, Connolly's maybe not quite as quick as Pollock, but I would say he's actually a better ball player and more technical than Pollock. So it would give them something else to think about when we've got possession of the ball.
Yeah.
But that's the sort of way that I would look at it. I think we are going to see pretty similar sort of a game, I think, as we did on Sunday. And if that is the case, then I'm really looking forward to it, because I actually thought, even though we kind of sat off again in the second half, was always going to happen after the effort we put in the first half, I still thought for 90 minutes it was actually a really good game, probably for the neutral to watch as well. So I think if we get that again, it should be a decent game. And yeah, I think what I'm looking forward to is hopefully Ross Matthews deciding that the wee superstar that is Dylan Tate apparently is going into the sponsor boards or something, because I cannot stand that wee Ned.
I mean,
see the more I think about how McGlynn will be thinking, he'll be thinking, if we can beat the Rovers press,
definitely,
then that gives us the ability to have overloads higher up the park, which makes me think even more that he's just going to play broadly the same way as what they always would. Like, I'm actually sitting trying to think it out now, and like if they can beat our press and then get like 5-on-4 going against our backline, that's where they're most likely to get a goal. So I don't think we'll see much of a change from Falkirk at all, to be honest. I think they'll come and play the way Falkirk play.
You're spot on with that, because that's, if you watched that first half on Saturday with the way that, and I know I said all this on Monday, I apologise for repeating the boring shit I've already said, but the way that they set up with their two centre halves and then Spencer drops in and we match them up perfectly with Marsh, Pollock and Easton, the easiest way to sort of immediately counteract that is just to drop Tate back as well. And what it means is that as Falkirk, you've got loads of guys really far back, but the Rovers have to come and get it, because we would have to then send either Matthews or Brown with Tate, and it's really high risk, really high reward. Because as you said there, if they can spring that, if they can, pop the ball into the fullback and knock it back to Tate when you've gone round Matthews, you've then got loads of space to work into. You've got Miller, you've got Ethan Ross or whoever, Callum Morrison, if he can be arsed, running at your back line with loads of space. But the high risk is what we kept doing to them first half on Sunday, which is that if we can turn the ball over, we're suddenly within 20 yards of goal and we've got all these guys up there. So it's That's what I think he will do, because I think it's too much beyond his own principles to go, we're actually just going to, start chipping the ball over the midfield and then shift it out quicker. So that's what I'm expecting to see. And as you say, if it works, it'll work for them really well, because they'll be on us really quickly. And that was what Ayr United did. That problem being that we didn't have very many midfielders, rather than we were being pulled out of position. But that's what I'm expecting to see, is that they're going to drop back even deeper to then bring the ball out. And it'll be interesting to see how well we manage to kind of cope with that. Because one thing that would help would be a dedicated number 10. And we've just sent our only one to Arbroath. So it's a big ask.
I've got more than enough faith in Dylan Easton to step up to the mark in that role. And I think that for me, I don't think there's really even a contest. Dylan Easton's been our player of the season so far. I think that he's just been... I was waiting for someone to jump in there and argue against that. But no. I feel like with regards to Falkirk, I think they're more likely to make rotational changes than we are to be in that position. I'm just not sure that if you can really figure out Robson as that manager yet that rotates players, whereas McGlynn seems to have this rota where he plays like Ethan Ross and Agyeman, and then he switches them out for Miller and obviously Callum. So yeah, it's one of those ones where I don't know if his parents were with that name, but it's one of those ones where with Morrison being transfer listed now, is he still going to play? Is he not?
Huge question mark.
And I think as well, as Duncan rightfully pointed out, you've got the changes at the back. It wouldn't surprise me if they brought in Leon McCann, because I think that he's been part of the sort of early season success that they did have, only to drop him out for Sean Mackey. And then, certainly last but not least, I know that you've got McKeever up top, but then you've also got Eamon Brophy who can come in as well. So
I'd forgotten about him.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. So it's one of those ones where it's very... I think it's a lot easier to see Falkirk potentially making wholesale changes, albeit they might not be necessary given how well they actually did in the second half last week. Leslie, I just want to get your thoughts going into the game. Obviously, you weren't able to make the post-match podcast. Just what were your thoughts on Sunday and sort of the style that came out there? Obviously, complete contrast to the Ayr United game. And are you quite optimistic going into this one?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to pee in the porridge, but I'm still a little bit concerned. Okay, I assure you I won't. I love my porridge and I wouldn't intend to do that. But we've had big results before this season, and we know this team can beat any other team in the league. Whereas we can be as good as anybody else in the league. We've beaten every team above us. Too often, though, we've followed that up with an absolute nuke of a performance, or we've won a game but not won it convincingly. And this is going to sound really, really weird. I'm going to try and articulate it. There's a pathway by which we could draw the game on Saturday, and I could be happier than if we'd won it. So that's going to sound really bizarre. But if we play like we did in the Cup game, and it ends up 1-1, and everybody works for a full 90 minutes, everybody looks like they know exactly what they're doing, everybody's got a job to do, they do it, everybody knows what they're doing, the subs come on, keep us as strong as we did, and it ends up 1-1. That would be brilliant. If we have a game like the Queen's Park game, where you're spending the whole of the first half going, what's the plan here, and we somehow get a penalty or a moment of individual brilliance, and then the momentum and a bit of luck carries us through, I'd be delighted that we'd won, but I'd also be worried, because the worry with this team is that they've always got that very low performance floor, and that they've always got the potential to throw in a nightmare. If we're able, as I say, to go out and play like we did at Falkirk, and even if we don't win, even if we draw, I think I'd be a lot more reassured if we're able to put in a performance of that quality. So for me, the performance matters almost as much, if not just as much, as the result, because we've got some big games coming up after that are going to be really important, that we do get something out against teams who are also scrapping down at the bottom. So Yeah, I think for me, as I say, the performance is going to matter as much. I mean, let's remember we're very light on bodies in midfield and also up front, and it's going to be a big ask for those guys to do that again. There are changes we can make, but we might be limited in the changes that we can make just simply because of the personnel that we have available.
Yeah. I think, again, it comes back to that position that we're in for January, and as you say, there is always the potential that we see bodies coming in, whether that's over the next few days or before the end of the window. Really intriguing position as to who we're potentially keeping in and looking at. So yeah, that'll obviously unfold as we say. Shall we do some lineups? Okay.
No.
Iain, for your cheek, your lineup, please.
Yeah, I've not written a lineup down purely because after the Stanton scenario of him going, and then on Pine Bovril just before we started recording, there was some chat that we were losing Kieran Freeman. I actually thought that we might announce a couple of signings tomorrow, and I couldn't be bothered writing down a team and wasting paper and ink on a team that would have just been absolute nonsense. Not that I've got great foresight in forecasting teams ever before, but to answer your question, I don't have a team. I wouldn't be averse to something quite similar to what we started on Saturday. I'd probably start Connolly ahead of Pollock, but beyond that, I don't think there was many misgivings in that side on Sunday, so not too distant from that for me.
Yeah, and for yourself, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too far off the same, pretty much. I think, I just noticed actually I need to take somebody off my bench. I've got Sam Stanton on the bench, but I think in terms of the starting team, yeah, if Barry Robson, if everybody's came out that game with no sort of knocks or that, I mean, we went and played 120 minutes, some of them. So if there's nobody with knocks and bruises that can keep going, then I would be happy enough seeing the exact same lineup going back out. Because if they can just perform again like they did in the first half, I think Falkirk will be finding it extremely tough again. But as I say, I'm kind of like Iain in the fact that I've really liked Aidan Connolly, especially in this last month. I think he's been our best player in the last month, pretty much. So I actually thought it was really harsh that he got dropped anyway.
It was.
On Sunday, and it was a bit of a surprise, as we kind of alluded to on Monday, that Pollock started. But at the same time, Pollock played well for the hour or so he was on. But I think Connolly coming in just gives us that little bit extra sort of when we've got the ball, because he is a very good technical player. And I think that he could probably get the better of somebody like Sean Mackey cutting in on his left foot and just sticking one in the far left corner. But we don't know, because I mean, was it just the other week they posted a video of Jack Hamilton scoring tap-ins and then he wasn't there on Sunday? So it could be a case that we don't hear it and he's there on Saturday. So you could have somebody like that in the picture as well. But I'm much the same, kind of go with the same team if they're all fit.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the language that was used around that Hamilton one was that he picked up a knock. But let's be honest, nobody knows. It's one of those ones where it's just, not our first rodeo. Duncan?
I've got the same team as Sunday. I think a lot of it, to be honest, picks itself anyway. The big question mark probably is around, as Scott says, Pollock and that kind of additional option. And I don't think it's a criticism of him or how he did on Sunday. It's just really that's where you've got alternatives. You know, Marsh really has to start because we don't have any other strikers. Matthews and Brown really have to be in the middle because we don't have any other midfielders. I was really impressed with the job that Dylan Easton did in that middle role. I'm absolutely certain that, you know, when he gets out of his bed the morning of a match day, what he doesn't want to be doing is a really tactically disciplined job on the on the opposition's number 6. But I thought he did it brilliantly. So very happy to let him do that. The reason I've kept Pollock in is I just thought that real kind of blitzkrieg from the first whistle worked really well. I actually think it might just be as simple as it might just work again. Like almost that you could overcomplicate that. Whereas for the first half hour on Sunday, we were forcing chances from Finlay Pollock, just chasing guys down and the ball popping out for Marsh and Easton. So I'm quite happy to just let that run again. But more so than anything, just to very briefly repeat something that I said in the last episode, really, really reassured by Barry Robson and the way that he put that team out and the way that they clearly were performing a very tactically specific game plan, more so than I think we ever saw under Neil Collins. So this newfound optimism can dissipate very quickly. 2 4-0 defeats on the bounce will remove it entirely. But I'm looking forward to seeing what Barry Robson does, because I thought he got a lot right on Sunday. So, optimistic on that front.
Yeah, I don't blame you. And certainly, very valid point about Barry Robson, just in terms of I know that we touched on it in the sort of post-match podcast, but sort of like it felt like a wholesale sort of change in the dynamic and the attitudes towards them. And that includes myself. I feel like just very convincing in terms of the way that it's done. It can change very quickly in the other way, because football fans, as we are notoriously fickle. But yeah, keen to see how we do. And then Leslie, of course, for yourself.
I suspect it will be the same lineup that went out at the Falkirk Stadium. I've just seen that the one thing I would like to see when fitness allows is Hamilton and Marsh together up top. I think that could work really well. Now, I need to see Marsh playing a few more games. Maybe I'm getting old and cynical, but I feel I need to see players a few times to get a clear picture of what they can do. But having somebody with Hamilton's physicality and his ability in the air to knock things down, hold things up, and then somebody like Marsh playing off him, when we saw, he's got a bit of speed to him and he's got a ferocious shot, that could be a very exciting combination for the 20 minutes that Jack Hamilton is fit every 6 months. So when it does happen, I very much look forward to seeing it.
Yeah, I think naturally that's something that we've not done too often over the last sort of maybe year or couple of years. Maybe it's probably just a symptom of modern football having two up top. But yeah, I feel like with Hamilton, just his ability to body people is very, very good. Particularly if you could have someone like Marsh feeding off it and picking up balls. But again, Hamilton as well can get himself into positions, and I do feel it's a bit of an underrated thing for him. I feel like he suffers because of the sort of injury issues that he's had, but he is still very good in the box when he gets, like, if there's a ball played across the 6-yard box. I do feel like he's a good player to have striking at home. It's just more, if you were to pick out a weakness aside from sort of the injuries, feels more like the chances when he's got more time to think about it. That's when he's sort of, I can historically remember sort of from maybe struggling. What we'll do now, for what it's worth, I would have kept the line-up the same. Potentially maybe Connolly in from the start, but then I think you'd be hard-pressed to drop either of the sort of front three, really. So, yeah, I would be looking to keep that the same. I think the main thing that we can take from Sunday is just that level of application that we've seen it in the first half. And I know that Robson came out and spoken about like work rate and things like that, but yeah, just going like, right, let's just chase them down, let's just harry them. You put it very good, just a blitzkrieg, like, let's go for it. So yeah, hopefully a raucous South Stand can cheer them on, and we'll see that come Saturday against Falkirk. Right, to round us off, because it's a pre-match, Leslie, you're ready to torture us with a should McStay or should Dargo?
Absolutely. Fabulous. So,
Forgot we
the rules,
still
as
had to
you all
do this.
know,
I've
You
not
got the last
prepared
one.
myself mentally for this.
Okay, let's get into it then. All the goals I have scored for Wraith Rovers have been scored at more than 100 feet above sea level and within 12 yards of the goalmouth.
Jesus Christ.
Right. All goals are 100 feet over
Mark
sea
Campbell.
Okay.
How far from goal? 6 yards, was it?
12.
12.
12.
just sent all my altitude charts to the dry cleaners. This is
So you said
it's a nightmare.
they've scored only from within 12 yards.
12 yards
Yeah.
or closer.
Right.
My thinking is it's got to be a defender who's coming up for corners. Can't remember too many Mark Campbell 25-yard rockets.
Ross
Well, it wasn't Grant
Millen.
Murray anyway.
No, it was not.
Duncan's Ross Millen.
Yeah, I'm going to
Did you
assume.
say Grant Murray, Robbie?
No, I said it's definitely not Grant Murray.
Ah,
Think of that
course,
goal
of
that he
course,
said,
yeah.
which was
I
about.
think he went for
Aye.
Grant Murray.
Just name a defender, Sean Dennis.
Okay.
Just to be different, I'm not going to go defender to start with, just because it could be somebody that was just like in the penalty box area all the time. But I'm probably going to be well wrong with this because he's probably scored a goal just that I've forgotten about. That was further out. Stephen Hislop.
Okay.
I feel like I can picture Stevie Hislop chipping a goalkeeper.
Blue
12
2
yards.
in the league of the current Wraith Rovers squad.
Still Sean Dennis then.
The other player whose goals per minute ratio I am closest to is Dylan Easton.
It's definitely no Sean Dennis.
Christ, right, hang on a second.
You're going to need to repeat
I've
that.
scored. Let me simple language. I've scored around the same number of goals per minute as Dylan Easton.
I'm all right.
Can we just agree that we're going in a group think tank
Yes.
here again?
Yes.
How many
Always
goals?
just when it's Leslie, to be fair.
Yeah. How many goals per minute do we think Dylan Easton's got?
Well, Dylan Easton must be on at least
1 in
between-
3?
Is it this season or just in his whole time?
And it's
In his whole time with us in the
I
championship.
thought there was something that came out about Dylan Easton not that long ago, and I think it was about 1 in 3.
So I
He'll
reckon
be still about that then this season because he's, if anything, this has been one of his more prolific years. Was
remember Robbie
smashing in the
saying
penalties.
last season that Kieran Mitchell had the best goals per minute in the league. I think this is going to be similar. So this is going to be like somebody who has one goal and has played like 300 minutes or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just go for Kieran Mitchell on that one then.
I'm going to change, and I'm going to go Cody David.
It's not a bad shout at all. I already hate myself for asking this. What was the sea level thing again?
All of my goals for Wraith Rovers were scored at more than 100 feet above sea level.
I'm going to go with...
Right, hang on a second. Starks Park can't be more than 100 feet above sea level.
I don't think it's far off. It is up high, like.
I don't know enough about sea level. I should have by now.
You will buy after a few of these. I don't know, just go with Platnik.
Okay.
I'm
Shudders.
just thinking of Airdrie.
Oh yeah, we had this before, didn't we? We had the thing about altitude. The
Yeah.
Airdrie was...
Yeah,
Airdrie is meant to be
It
the
is.
highest ground.
It's
in-
up there.
it is. Airdrie is the highest.
Normally, when that question gets flung out, everyone just goes, "Oh, Ross County or Elgin."
Yeah.
It's up north. It must be up high.
it's high up there.
The sea's awfully low in there, up there. So
You get up to Inverness and you're putting on your oxygen mask.
Inverness is in Bolivia.
Oh, geez, you got a gulp of oxygen there. I was about to pass out.
Ryan Christie running about in a match in Peru and he's absolutely fine. And they're all like, what the fuck's this guy all about?
I can't
don't
remember.
have a
Did
better
you
guess.
say? Did you say anything about them playing recently for the Rovers, or just
No.
there was nothing
Their
about
goals
a
per minute. No. The goals per minute ratio is
do we think
close to
Gordon
Dylan
Smith?
Easton.
Gordon Smith didn't he play a load of games for us, and he scored a couple?
Didn't
Did
he
you know?
score a lot of goals?
Didn't he score many goals either?
But like I can't remember him playing even 20 games. I'm sure he scored like 3 or 4 goals, or maybe even. I'll just go with Gordon Smith because I've got nothing else.
Okay. So, any advance from Duncan?
John Fredrickson.
Okay.
Try to remember how far out his goal was at Stenny, but for the purposes of moving the game on, I'll go with him.
Okay. Clue 3. My brother is also a player who has played in Scotland.
Oh, I'm going to go back to Mark Campbell.
Aye.
Yeah, Scott Martin. Played for Ayr.
Yep.
Yeah, for a long time.
Am I getting this wrong? Is Gordon Smith actually Kevin Smith's brother?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, they are.
I'm just sticking with my answer then because I've got nobody else as a brother that I can think of.
Right, unless I'm forgetting, I don't know, Gumbo Fredrickson. I'm going to go for everybody's favourite brother, John Sutton.
Right. I'll go for Jason Thompson.
Okay.
Who's
Clue
his
4.
brother?
Also
Danny
played
Thompson.
for us.
I know. Right for a should
To say I
McStay, should
learned.
Dargo until this point now that I've...
Clue 4. I started my senior footballing career at university. My university had a railway station named after it. The stations either side of it were called Lions Park and Sunnyside.
Coatbridge.
Coatbridge.
There's lots of sunny sides. And
Is there?
sorry,
Lions Bridge. Was it?
I don't know where that is. I
Lions
don't know
Park.
that.
So the university had a station named after it. Stations either side of the station were called Sunnyside and Lions Park.
right, well, one of the two on Sunnyside is Coatbridge Station. I
Yeah.
don't know what is the other side, but I kind of think it's named after a university.
No.
This is an incredible clue because I've forgotten the whole purpose of the rest of the game. So
I'm just trying to think of Rovers players that have been starting
Uni.
football.
Been at
at uni.
university.
Aye. Andrew Cook was one.
Harriet
Jason
Watt.
Thompson did go later in his career.
Nah, this guy started his career at university.
That's true.
James Cragen did, but he's been one
Yeah.
already.
He went to an Edinburgh uni, I'm sure.
And he had that belter against Alloa that was definitely more than...
Sorry, was the
I'm
university
pretty sure he scored most of his goals for the edge of the
Yeah,
box, basically.
yeah,
Aye.
definitely.
was the university named after the railway station or the other way around? Sorry.
Other way round.
The railway station was named after the university.
Yes.
Right. I don't think that can be in Scotland.
No.
Which just leaves the rest of the world, really.
I really regret when Leslie said, "Do you want me to do a should McStay or should Dargo?" Like, hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Right, but it's Lions Park or Sunnyside, so it must be the English-speaking world. I'm narrowing
Yeah.
down.
Could be down in like Surrey.
Australia.
We're going to have to play music over this bit or something just to try and... We are still here. We're just all stumped.
I was going to say I've got nothing.
The silence is
On-
better than chat about Callum Morrison, to be fair.
Sorry, Robbie. You're really going at that. I'm sorry.
Lions Park. So I don't know why I'm doing this as if I'm going to be like, oh, of course.
Lions.
I got rid of all my railway maps along with my altitude chart.
And I don't think this is one that's on a Monopoly board either.
Four
so
tubes.
No.
Start at university.
I've got
Right,
nothing.
so I think that's,
Yeah,
I
I've
think
got
that's
no
got to
advance.
be.
with what I've got. Then.
I think it has to be someone who at the very least went to university outside of Scotland. So you would assume on that basis, probably a non-Scottish person. But their brother also played football in Scotland.
John Sutton would.
Could work, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not a bad shout.
Because I did wonder
Where did Sutton come from?
Is it no Norwich?
I've got Millwall in my head, but did he go to Millwall?
Millwall, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure
Norwich
I've
rings a
heard
bell,
Chris
yeah.
Sutton going on about saying that their family are all in Norwich or in that area.
Yeah.
So I would guess that that's the sort of area they're from.
Would there be a Sunnyside in Norwich? A Lions Ridge?
The existence of Sunnyside and Coatbridge really does mean you could put Sunnyside anywhere. I'm guessing it's ironic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Norwich, what would be the university there? Because there's not like Anglia Ruskin,
the
is it, or
University
something
of
like
East
that?
Anglia.
Is it not Anglia Ruskin or something like that as well? Is one of them? Anglia Ruskin?
Not a Scooby.
Don't know. I think we might need the next clue, Liz.
Yeah.
I'm not a fucking UCAS application here. Come on.
Okay, Blue 5. I scored my first league goal for Wraith Rovers at Ochil View.
Just
I don't know why I even straight away thought that Fredrickson was an answer there.
Yeah. Jesus, my knowledge of Faroese universities is even worse than my knowledge of East
See,
Anglia
whenever I
universities.
think of goals at Ochil View, I just think of Hjalmar Ferrarisson with that like 35-yarder.
That was
That was
Allo.
Allo.
Aye. Oh, right, aye, of course.
So scored his first goal.
So now it's Ochil View, I just think of John
Who
Fredrickson.
scored at Ochil View?
Yeah.
Fredrickson
That's why I was
did,
like,
but it
that
wasn't.
straight away I was like, it can't be Fredrickson. But
wasn't a league
the fact
game.
that, like,
Aye.
yeah, true.
Callum Crane, I think, scored for us at Ochil View. But I only know that because we talked about it the last time we had him for this game.
The only thing that I keep going back to is that second clue with ratio
What
to
about
game
would,
goals and that.
Carol Hawley?
It's rolling back the years now, Robbie.
It
So
is. That's a proper like championship manager answer. Like,
I remember hearing his name, but I couldn't tell you what he was like.
you were about 6.
Carl Hawley have a brother? Not
Playing
not
Scotland.
familiar with that one, but
that's a good point. Fuck.
John Sutton might got his first one for us at Stanton.
Yeah.
it doesn't take him off the board.
I mean, it's really. Aye.
I mean, were Stenny in our league about that time?
I couldn't.
Yeah, I mean,
have a clue.
We were in the Barretza top at the time, and I remember Sutton playing in that one.
because we went down under Calderon, so it must have been the season that we were under Calderon or this McGlynn Mark II, because that's the only real times that we've sort of been in the same league. So who did we have at that point?
Bear in mind, Ochil View is also everybody's favourite ground share option.
Yeah.
So
Queen's Park,
Aye, that's
Falkirk,
hundreds of teams
they've all played
Thistle.
there.
I was going to say, did even,
East
but
Stirling.
I don't remember ever being in the league with East Stirling.
No, probably not in the league.
Nah, we weren't. And did we even score against Queen's Park? Willie Akio scored because he scored a penalty. I remember that because he did the split.
Did a backflip.
Aye.
I'm pretty certain his brother's not playing
Willie
in Scotland.
Akio. That might be it, right? So you think about it. His brother plays up at Ross County. Aye, I'm pretty certain it's going to be Willie Akio, given Leslie's love for him.
Wait,
Yeah.
he's got a
Leslie
brother.
loves Willie Akio.
Is it not Laturi? Is actually his brother?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Lions
it is.
Bridge.
Really?
Yeah, Lions Bridge and Sunnyside. I mean, that's Canadian.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I said it was part of the English speaking world.
Yeah.
It was in that other bit of the world you were talking
I'm
about. Duncan.
acting like I've got this right. Leslie might just throw this, but the
I
last
would
one, like,
never have even thought that Laturi was his brother.
Yeah.
The fact
Aye.
that they're just completely different names.
I'm sure it's Laturi. I might be wrong, but I'm just going to double check it.
Part of me, when you first said it, I went, actually, I thought I'd heard that Akio had a brother that played football, but I didn't think it was in Scotland.
Yeah, definitely. When you said about
Yeah, Victor Laturi's his brother.
Fredrickson scoring at Ochil View,
Was it to different parents and everything?
I don't know.
Well, presumably one of them's the same.
Right, clue 6 then.
this mentions South Sudan.
I missed a cup final because I was away on international duty.
Yeah, I mean, it's
With South Sudan, by any chance?
Yep, with South Sudan.
Well done, Robbie.
Right,
Well
so
done, Robbie.
who's
Yes, indeed, Will.
who's played for South Sudan and Rovers? Yes, I'll take the victory on that. A real collective group effort going through, trying to remember.
Which university did he go to, Liz?
He went to South Alberta Institute of Technology, or SAIT for short.
Just
So
on the
the
name,
Calgary
Matthias, you were
Railway.
saying it there.
I love.
And if you,
I knew it had to
Sorry?
be Calgary.
There you go.
I was going to say, I was going to throw a curveball out there. We'd only have landed with Scott probably. If you stayed on that line to the end, you would get to the Saddle Dome, and you'd get to the Flames.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The Saddle
I
Dome.
do find it funny.
Sounds like a particularly painful ailment.
That's going to have to be the photo for this.
Willie Accio is out for the next 4 weeks with a terrible case of Saddle Dome.
Saddle
Just
Dome.
need to put the Calgary Flames logo in, and everyone will be going, Blair must be on this one. They're talking about hockey.
I did like the fact that we just completely. I was like, Willie Accio scored at Ockleview. And then it was like about 30 seconds later, I'm like, actually, Willie Accio makes sense. But,
Do not
just in front of you.
even scoring there. So,
well, anyway, that will round off this episode of the Oh No 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 podcast. So thank you for taking time for listening. We will no doubt be back after the weekend's game. And hopefully we're not all blown away by this red weather warning and alarms going off on phones. We'll see. Need to see what happens. But it's meant to calm down for Saturday, so hopefully it's a good game. But yeah, thank you for taking the time to listen, and bye for now.
Bye, Bob.